So for the next lightning talk, we are joined by Tammy Patrick and Adam Hinds. Speaking today, Tammy Patrick is speaking on behalf of the Bolstering Elections Initiative, where she is a senior advisor. We also have Adam Hinds, who is Chief Executive Officer at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate. He was previously a leading member of the Massachusetts State Senate, as well as a United Nations official in the Middle East and a congressional staffer. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And it's been great to be here today and to see all of you good friends and colleagues. You know, we have a saying in elections, you've heard me say it a number of times, that we want our elections to be fast, and we want them to be cheap, and we want them to be accurate, but we only get to pick two. And we've heard a lot over the course of the day around the tensions that happen there. So a consistent, reliable, and equitable funding stream is a perennial issue in elections, in election administration. And although there's been academic research on this thorny topic over time, and although we have conferences like the Ezra Conference and the Auburn Symposium and Journal and the Medsel convenings that we see, much of this work is sometimes still unknown to practitioners and policymakers. Because of this, the Bolstering Elections Initiative is seeking to change that by anthologizing research, case studies, and insight on exactly how are our elections funded. So that's only half of the story, the output of the process and of this project. The other half is the bipartisan nature of the effort itself. And so for that, I'd like to turn it over to Adam.
Great, thank you, Tammy. And I know that Tammy is known well by a lot of you out here, and it's just incredible to be working with her and her understanding of elections across the country. So I guess, as you heard in the introduction, before doing this work, I was a state senator in the Middle East for 10 years, working in Iraq, Jerusalem, and Syria on negotiations. And I kind of start with that because it informs how we've designed our democracy work at the Institute. And namely, we lock elbows with an institute of a former Republican senator in everything that we're doing. The idea is that, look, you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't open the door in Congress or in your state legislature, then what good is it? The other aspect is we have a bipartisan board at the Institute, 8 former senators amongst others, and 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. And they said, particularly in the aftermath of the 2020 election, we don't recognize our politics. We don't understand how this is impacting, the ways in which this is impacting our governing institutions, and we can do something about it. We should be doing something about that. And so that's when we joined up with the Dole Institute. As you can see, my fearless leader or collaborator is featured in the middle, Audrey Coleman. She couldn't make it today. Jackson Dandre is here representing the Institute. And what we essentially decided is that, look, our namesakes, 2 lions, two giants of the Senate, represent how and when you should come together, reaching across the aisle, especially when it comes to elections. They would work together regularly to extend the Voting Rights Act, among many other things that they took on together, and just recognizing that there are certain things that are critical and national importance that we can and should work on across the aisle. And so what we've done is convene, Tammy in particular, has convened literally our national experts and practitioners, policy practitioners, that came together in the images you see here in our kickoff symposium in Lawrence. That's Secretary of State Scott Schwab, who's featured, and with many others. Many of you are in the room today, in fact, which is a great sign, but others, including the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, who are participating in this report that we're putting together to really lift up the hood and try to answer the question, why is it so difficult to understand the funding of our elections compared to other government services, and really be clear about some of the ways that are working well and other possibilities. And so we're looking forward to that report coming out next year. I have to say, we are eternally grateful to the Elections Trust Initiative for supporting this work, and Avery is here. So thank you for everything that you're doing for our country and our democracy. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Tammy.
Great, thank you. We took this lightning talk really to heart. So we may be such fast lightning that we're not even going to take up our full 7 minutes, which is all well and fine. But I will say this in closing, and that is, My hope for this project is through the course of pulling together these stories, these research, and the various anecdotes as well as sound data points that people across the country can use to understand how their elections are funded, who's paying for it, what they're paying for potentially, not exactly what the cost is, because that's part of the thorny issue, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the introduction to the paper or to the project. But we really hope that it has legs, similar to the Presidential Commission on Election Administration's report that was a solid, practical, bipartisan effort that people could point to and say, this is what I've been saying for years, and here are all of these experts on both sides of the aisle that are championing this cause as well. So for those of you in the room that are authors, thank you for sending in your chapters.
And those of you who have not, we anticipate that arrival.
Those of you who have not, we anticipate your long flights tonight and tomorrow. We'll be generating those initial drafts. But truly, we're really, really appreciative. Not only myself, it's such an honor to work with both of these institutes, but to be able to bring together some of this work into a single place where we can find it, locate it, champion it, and share it with our voters, potentially, with the press, with the media, with our policymakers, and of course, those who hold the purse strings. So with that, thank you all, and look for it early next year.